Hey, you're listening to the Bandwagoners. My name is Andy Cole.
And my name's Justin Boniface, and we're bringing you playoff news and notes from around the NHL. Beginning of round two.
Yeah, round two.
Doing good, doing good.
That was one hell of a round one, I gotta say.
Well, especially the Boston-Toronto. That really was a way to put an exclamation point on round one.
Yeah, that was probably, we'll get into it shortly, that was probably one of the best playoff games, period, that I've ever seen. Sounds like a lofty statement, but that game had everything. It was like a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
It was terrific.
Yeah, I agree. The energy was nuts.
It was just unbelievable. So yeah, before we're going to go through round one and then let you know how that ended out. Obviously, there was only one series that was over on the last show, so we're going to go through the rest briefly, see how we did prediction-wise, then we'll be breaking down round two for you. Firstly, though, quick news out of Dallas. Dallas fired their coach, Glenn Gulletson, today. Rookie coach, he was only there for 2 years, but they've missed the playoffs like 5 seasons in a row now.
Yeah, you could think that he would be an interim in the first place. It's kind of surprising he lasted as long as he did. He was probably getting some results. I remember last season they were doing well. So
yeah, it's funny, even though he's not fired yet, there's already rumors that Lane Vigneault of the Canucks might end up there as a likely destination, just because him and Aaron Rome are like
Didn't
best
Mark
buddies.
Crawford make that same jump too, or did he was in Dallas for
Crawford
a bit, wasn't he?
I want to say that he was briefly.
I don't know if he went straight there or not, but in any case, similar move.
So yeah, that's interesting to see out of Dallas. We got some hardware nominations. GM of the Year, Murray out of Anaheim, mostly due to the signings of
Getzlaf and Perry.
Yeah, which were great signings. I mean, guys thought that they wouldn't really be able to obtain both of them, or retain both of them, I should say, but those were two excellent long-term signings by Anaheim. So.
I think the nomination's a bit preemptive based on the fact that we don't know how difficult it's going to be for them to sign their young talent once those contracts start coming up.
That's true. It might bite him in the butt down the road.
So really,
you got Ray Shero of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who in my opinion it's his this year.
Strictly because of the Morrow and Iginla. Those two moves, getting Murray was awesome, and those are a bit small pieces, but be able to get two blockbusters
without losing anything,
and the move, the crafty move to get what's his name,
Jokinen, for less than he would have on the free agency block.
As much as I'd love to give it to the third candidate, Mark Bergevin, it's Shearos.
Probably Shearos. Although it's great to see Mark Bergevin rounded out. He's the third selection. Obviously, him and your coach
Michel Therrien
had a lot to do with the Habs going from last place to one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
So definitely
a little luck there too. I mean, who could have called that? Cole for Ryder would have turned out like it did.
And your rookies Gallagher and Galchenyuk, nobody thought they would have the impact.
But that's drafting. You have to remember that Galchenyuk only played 30 games, only played 8 games with the Sarnia Sting the previous year because of a pretty brutal injury.
Yeah.
And so he was a bit of a risky pick at whatever we had, third overall.
Yeah, well, you guys picked very well, and Bergevin deserves to be there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Shero is going to take it this year.
Yeah.
Then we got the Hart finalists. We got Sidney Crosby, surprise, surprise. John Tavares, who pretty much was the New York Islanders for the last half of the season, and Alex Ovechkin, surprisingly, who really just turned it on in the last month to really propel his team into the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think Tavares is going to get this one.
He should. They could give it to Crosby based on the fact that him and his abilities based on injury,
Crosby not have been injured,
scoring race.
Had Crosby not have been injured, he would take it because his point total is just ludicrous.
Yeah.
But based on the fact that he got injured and Ovechkin was only stellar for the last half of the year, and Tavares was great all year, I definitely give it to Tavares this year.
And I love John Tavares. I mean, I think he's one of the most talented Canadian hockey players.
His coming out year. It really was.
Exactly. And
I mean, guys knew that he had it in him. But they weren't sure when it would come.
A bit of a late bloomer compared to his other co-stars that were picked that young. He got an early OHL pick as well as an early NHL pick. So it was nice to see him finally have a breakout year.
A lot of people are surprised Jonathan Taves didn't get nominated.
Well, if you can only bring up 3, I mean, those are 3 pretty competitive
I would
choices.
say Taves had a great year, but I wouldn't put him as the sole reason Chicago was so good.
They're so well-rounded, and Quenneville gets a lot of credit.
Yeah, and I mean, Taves was one facet of that team. He's one aspect of why they're so good, but I don't think he carried them on his back.
But I mean, we can't really tell that either. I mean, the thing about Taves is he's had the same roster for years as captain, and really, if he can motivate them in the dressing room, we're not seeing that kind of leadership on the ice.
He is underrated in a lot of ways.
And I think that just because he brings that year after year experience to the same roster,
he's a winner.
And
he's won at everything he's ever done.
It's kind of tough because you can't really compare him. If he has only good seasons, then it's hard to say he excelled this year.
And he's never going to give you those lofty point totals because he's such a well-rounded player. Like, he's a two-way style player, much like Steve Yzerman in his later years. Yeah. That's who he's most often compared to. He's not going to give you the point totals of Tavares or Crosby.
Well, he might turn that into an aspect of his game. We'll have to see.
Maybe.
I mean, he can.
Yeah, maybe eventually. I mean, a reversal of what Yzerman did. Yzerman started out as 50 goals every year, and then over time he sort of melded into this more complete player.
Yeah.
So anyways, that'll be really exciting to see who takes it. We both think probably Tavares. Round one. We'll just go through all the rounds right now in no particular order. We won't talk about San Jose Vancouver because I spent like an hour on it last show.
Yeah.
So we were both wrong there. We both picked Vancouver, and San Jose, of course, swept that series. Second series is Pittsburgh versus the Islanders. We were both right. I said 5 games for Pittsburgh. You said 6 games.
I said 5 or 6, depending on Crosby being injured for his period, and Tavares, he did have an excellent series.
I gotta say, I was surprised. I knew the Islanders had something in them, but I didn't think they were going to give Pittsburgh that much of a challenge.
And it really, unfortunately, most of the time you can't blame playoff games on solely one player, but definitely that one game, Marc-Andre Fleury pretty much handed that comeback.
It could have really been 5 games had it not been for that meltdown.
Exactly. And even in the other game, there was still 5 goals against. So.
And now that knocked, which we'll be talking about for the second round stuff in a bit, that knocked Fleury out of the starting job. Now Vokoun has it looks like.
And what do we talk about several times up to the playoff point is they are lucky to have him because Fleury's such a question mark.
And Vokoun,
already in the second round, he's going to be the starter.
And Vokoun's phenomenal. In my opinion, he would be a starter on most teams. Vokoun is spectacular. I don't think he's a backup at all based on his skill level. He's a bit older now. He's 36, I believe. But, Pittsburgh just scored 3-1 Pittsburgh. We're watching the Pittsburgh-Ottawa game live,
and by the way, I wrote my predictions prior to watching this, so I'm still calling the same thing. 3-1
Pittsburgh in the second. 1 minute to go in the second. 3-1 Pittsburgh. First game of this series. Kunitz just scored. Pittsburgh Islanders was a very entertaining series, but we're both not surprised Pittsburgh won. Montreal versus Ottawa. I was right here. You were wrong. You picked Montreal, of course, but they're your boys. You gotta.
Yeah.
Ottawa wins in 5. I picked Ottawa to win in 6. I'm not surprised Ottawa won. I did think going in they were the stronger team just based on the season that they had and how storybook it was. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they somehow managed to upset Pittsburgh, although realistically, probably not going to happen.
More of a chance than the Islanders, and if the Islanders can win too...
They could. Ottawa just has that sort of storybook season thing going for them, which is why I had this funny feeling they would take out Montreal. But how do you feel as a Habs fan? Were you surprised with these results?
Yeah, it was a bit shocking, but playing with a severely injured roster. Going into the playoffs, we had 3 or 4 question marks, and by the time Game 2 came around, we had 4 guys who couldn't even get on the ice.
Well, as we talked about last show, the Eller hit was really the turning point. And not to mention the kick-in motion that caused that goal, which ultimately led to Price's injury.
I could argue a lot of things in the last 12 minutes of that game and how it would have completely changed the series. So I would like to see Ottawa get knocked out just because I feel that series was such a lucky bounce chance. Montreal didn't play to the sense that I'm saying they should have won.
You still felt ultimately Ottawa would have won in 7, probably?
That's the thing. It's hard to make that prediction because I feel that Price's injury was the big question mark. Mm-hmm. And had he not been injured, I feel he had the talent to win us the series.
But that ultimately is the way the chips fell, and
that's the way it is. So here we are.
Playoff hockey, yeah. So Chicago versus Mini. We both were right. We both said Chicago in 5. That was probably the most boring series of the bunch, just because Chicago was more just playing. Yeah,
I did call it a sweep, and they're still in practice mode right now. So they will have to turn it on to challenge the Wings.
This is true. Yeah, but that we were both right with that series. Minnesota didn't really do much to challenge Chicago. That was a skip-em series for sure. Boston versus Toronto. Boston won in the 7th game. We both picked Boston to win, but not in 7. Toronto did such a phenomenal job this year. Nobody expected them to go to 7 games against the Bruins, and we got to talk about this game.
A heartbreaker.
What an epic collapse. For those that don't know, although I'm sure Canada knows by now, the world knows by now, one of the most epic collapses I've ever seen in any sport. Boston was up 4-1, Toronto was up 4-1 with 10 minutes to go in the game. It looked like they had it in the bag. Boston looked defeated. Toronto looked like they were just flying.
Now, keep in mind, Boston scored a goal with 11 minutes to go.
Yeah.
That only brought it within 2.
Even at that point, people still had a feeling it was going to be the Leafs that took it.
It was only with a minute 15 left when they brought it within one with the goal he pulled.
Bergeron scored. Was it Bergeron that scored the? No, who scored the 4-3?
I'm not sure.
Lucic scored the 4-3 goal. Lucic scored the 4-3 goal with the goal he pulled, and then with 55 seconds to go, Bergeron scored to tie it up. So a 4-1 game, 10 minutes to go. Suddenly it's 4-4 going into overtime. Toronto is pretty nervous at this point. You could tell going to overtime, Boston had all the momentum with their crowd behind them, and they won 6 minutes into overtime. Bergeron got a second goal of the night, pretty much Chara's goal. He was standing, screening Reimer. Reimer had a great game up until the last 10 minutes. Then he probably had a couple goals there, which he would have liked back. Rask was spectacular. I gotta say, once again, my boy, Milan Lucic, he was the largely the reason that they won that game.
Well, and they needed him throughout the entire series because Brad Marchand, Sagan, and Bergeron, that line was quiet. Like, Sagan, Boston's going to need him to have the year he had the year they won the Cup because they
and same with Marchand.
Not scoring.
Marchand's been up and down. He's not been great.
Exactly. And Sagan, and both of them, they should just be getting better from that point because they're
well,
young
now
guys,
with the momentum they have from this win, Boston's gonna have a great second round series, I think. But Lucic, he's got that leadership skill about him. He got that goal, and he's like, "All right, boys, it's rally round now. We can do this." You saw him skating up his bench, hitting guys in the head, his own teammates knocking them on the helmets, like riling them up. Come on, we can do this. There's still life left. It was almost like something out of a movie. And Lucic's an intimidating guy, and his teammates listen to him. And that's something I've always really liked about him. He's just got that character about him, that leadership quality, which I think is very underrated. And I think you're
marry him already.
I think he's one of those guys. Like, he's going to be. That's the kind of player that he is. He's a playoff performer, and he rallied his team around him, really carried them on his back there, and then Bergeron took it home, and they won that game. And as much as I hate Boston, as much as I was cheering for the Leafs just because I can't stand Boston, I was happy for them at that moment. After all they went through, after all that city had been through this year with the bombings, it was great to see. It was great to see for Boston. Sucks for Leafs fans. I know there are Leafs fans all around the city.
I have to laugh and mock at them. I mean, as a Montreal Canadiens fan, I got to say, losing the series the way we did, or even the way the Vancouver Canucks did, I'd rather that than blowing 11 minutes to go.
I don't know.
Lead
as a Leafs fan, I don't know how you could feel right now. That's not going to sit well. Who had a great tweet today? It was Loophole. Tweeted, "This game is going to haunt me for the rest of my life," and he says that honestly because it will. I mean, you don't experience mini collapses like that in any sporting event, and Toronto collapsed with epic fashion. And Leafs fans, I wonder, are almost like, well, this is it. This is how we are as Leafs fans. I feel the same way about the Canucks sometimes. It's just almost expected
but
that this will happen,
A couple great points about both them and the Montreal Canadiens is they're way ahead of where they need to be as far as the youngness of the youth of their rosters.
This is what people are saying around the NHL.
That's an excellent show up for the rosters they have, and they got to look that this is a positive thing for the future.
It is. Everyone around the NHL is saying that as low as Leafs fans feel right now, you guys got to understand.
Like Nazem Kadri?
Oh, came out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, but he was a late bloomer.
Look for him to have several more seasons like that, and he'll be electric in the playoffs.
He's going to be a star. So. He's going to be a star in this league for a long time. Yeah. I think Leafs fans should be proud with the series they had, with the season they had.
Oh yeah,
they're going to be.
They could have rolled over down 3-1 easy.
They're going to be a playoff contender for a long time now. They really put together a good team. Gardner was phenomenal. They got a great defensive back end. Cody Franzen, who he was a former Vancouver Giant. I've loved this kid for years now. He's really coming to his own. You got pretty much two superstar young rookie defenseman carrying you back there. Reimer's really stepped into his own, although with his play in the last game now, the Luongo rumors have started to circulate again.
I don't think that's so rough.
Reimer can never shake that, it seems. He can never shake that.
Any goalie can have a bad 5 minutes. Well, that's the thing. Any goalie can have a bad 5 minutes like Reimer did. That's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The whole series, he was great.
He was phenomenal.
And in the last 3 or 2 wins that Toronto had, to bring it
phenomenal.
Back and tie the series, he was amazing.
He was phenomenal. The collapse just came at a very bad time.
Yeah, and you couldn't even blame all those goals on him. No. Like Chara went with a 4-foot wide butt.
Oh no! I mean, the whole team crumbled around him. Yeah. It's not on him.
No,
I think Toronto fans have to feel really good about themselves. They got a great young squad, and they're going to be a contender.
Jam would be stupid to replace him right now.
I think that's more of a gut thing. Like there's more a gut reaction. I don't think Reimer's going anywhere.
No,
realistically. But yeah, we were both right with Boston. We just couldn't predict how it ended, and ultimately, I felt like that was even over St. Louis, LA. That ended up being in my books as the best series.
Yeah, especially because LA LA came and quieted out the series. Like it was electric for the first 4 games, and then LA just kind of closed it down.
They really turned it on there.
Yeah, Quick specifically.
Oh yeah, he really found his form. Boston, Toronto there, great series. Washington versus New York, next to the Chicago Mini, probably one of the more dull series of the first round.
It got better as it went on.
It did.
Those 2 overtime games were pretty sweet.
They were really good.
5 and 6.
It started to pick up steam towards the end there. I was surprised it went to 7, considering I didn't think either team played particularly well. You were right. You picked New York just because they're your bandwagon team, of course.
Yeah.
I picked Washington. I thought Ovechkin was going to have a much better series than he did. He was very invisible. New York did a great job shutting him down. I didn't think either team played particularly well. New York just didn't play quite as poorly as Washington, and I was surprised it went to 7 games. It was a pretty uneventful series up until the very end there. Lundqvist was exceptional.
Well, back-to-back shutouts going into the second round. That's
huge
incredible.
for him.
Yeah, and he earned both of those shutouts.
Boston's not going to have an easy time against New York.
No, and so that's going to be an excellent series. I was just about to make my prediction, but we'll hold off on that.
Yeah, we'll hold off. We're almost there.
Yeah.
LA versus St. Louis. You were right. You picked LA. I picked St. Louis. Although I will say I scratched it out at the last second. It really was a pick'em series for me. Like I would have not been surprised at all if LA won. I picked St. Louis because they were my bandwagon team, but I would have been I would have not been surprised at all if LA won.
I had the Kings in 6, and I was a little bit nervous when they went down 0-2, but they really... Quick, I mean, the thing about Jonathan Quick, and I think I mentioned this in the last show, is he just wouldn't take no for an answer. Like, he played great in Game 1 and then gave up the overtime winner. He played great in Game 2 and only let in 2 goals, and it still wasn't enough. So what? In Game 3 comes out, gets a shutout, and just we're winning this series.
LA's experience really shone through there at the end, much like how Boston's experience sort of was the deal breaker for them. LA's experience, I think, is really what got them the win there against St. Louis.
That's going to give them a lot of momentum heading into San Jose.
It will. Hitchcock was very correct in the sense that St. Louis didn't play particularly well a lot of the nights. Like they underachieved. I think they could have played a lot better. But at the same time, LA had a very good series. They started slow and ended up playing very well. Their important guys really turned it on at the end there. This always seems to happen with LA. They just sort of start slow and they sort of build their momentum. I'm not at all surprised that LA won. And then you got the final series, Detroit versus Anaheim. We were both wrong. We both picked Anaheim. But
I knew it was going to go to 7. I knew it would be tight. I just didn't think the Wings would have it in them to go that distance. But they did. It was electric, and you got to hats off to Henrik Zetterberg. I mean,
what a series.
They took the series into his hands in the last couple games there.
Datsuk was great as well.
Datsuk was. But
Anaheim's top line was a bit quiet.
And I mean, when you look at that, like, you just had to know it was coming. Like, they're the top 2 scorers for the Red Wings going in to the second round, and just incredible players.
Anaheim's best players.
Ageless players.
They are. Anaheim's best players could not match Detroit's best players, which ultimately became the series decider. Hiller was great, but I thought that Howard was even better.
Yes.
Getzlaf was good, but not as good as he should have been.
And Perry and Ryan were silent.
They were invisible.
Perry was
he had
aggressive.
A lot of chances.
Yeah, but just couldn't bury it. But Ryan, he's such an on and off player. Like, he's turning into like a Michael Ryder type deal where you don't know which one you're going to get which season.
You never know. Anaheim's got to feel bad about that, though. They got to feel bad about that because they really should have won. They were the better team.
And come on, with a season like that, they're the third best team in the NHL. Sorry, like you put Chicago so far up there.
But Anaheim really should have won. But it's the Red Wings, man. You can't take them lightly. They have all that experience. And they just, it's the stigma of the Red Wings. Like, they just know how to beat you.
What did you think about Brenner's series? Because that was his first.
He was good. I mean, he's one of those guys I commented early on in the season. Detroit just has this thing where their scouts are like from the future or something, and they always know who to pick.
Just enough to keep the roster going.
It's just like, okay, now we need this one random guy that's going to step up and come into his own that nobody else thought would do anything. Let's pick this guy. And it was Brenner, and he was great. Abdelkader as well was another one of those players that... Abdelkader had a great series.
Especially in the last 2 seasons coming out of nowhere. He's...
Nystrom had a great series. All 3 of those guys were like 6th, 7th round picks. One of them wasn't even drafted. Detroit this is how they roll. They just know how to...
They refuse to blow it up.
Yeah, they just know how to... Ken Holland is the best GM in the business, even over Shiro, in my opinion, for his longevity and what he's been able to do for that franchise. He just has this crystal ball. He knows exactly how to pick at the right time, and other GMs would wish they had his ability.
The scary thing now is that, even though they're still in the playoffs, I mean... This year was probably the year they were going to be closest to missing it. They have a solid year now to make it next year.
It came down to the last game for them. They almost missed it,
which was crazy. But next year, they're going to be way more aggressive. They're going to have much younger guys coming up that are going to
and you make a good point. This is the worst that Detroit gets. You kidding me?
Exactly.
It's only going to go up from here.
And they're in the second round.
I know.
Yeah,
just terrifying. All right, well, so that's first round for you. as we thought, a great first round. Although I said it early on a couple shows ago how I thought the first round is always going to be the best round of the playoffs because that's usually the case. You might make an argument this year. The second round has some insane matchups.
Well, and you and me specifically as fans, like our series weren't as exciting as they were built up to be.
No, not at all.
Really, like,
well, I don't know. I thought as an outsider, the Montreal-Ottawa series was pretty entertaining.
I thought it was entertaining, but it wasn't
stressful for you.
Well, and hockey exciting. Like it doesn't like. You don't want to see a player get smoked like that. You don't want to see a puck get counted when it's kicked in. You don't want to it's stuff you don't want to see. It's entertaining, sure.
Yeah.
But I just and either way, and even as an Ottawa fan, like it's just rough. Like your team has to go through this brutal scrutiny for this hit that's not even illegal. Yeah. Like that would suck as an Ottawa fan.
Yeah.
Like to me, it just didn't live up to the expectation of the series it could have been.
Yeah. No, it could have been even better than it was. Absolutely. I mean, definitely my series, like, only San Jose showed up to that series, so it was completely uneventful for Canucks fans, to say the least. But round 2 is going to be great. So let's go through round 2. One of them just is almost third period is almost starting, so we'll
start with that one.
Start with this series: Pittsburgh versus Ottawa. I got Pittsburgh in 6.
Me as well.
Yeah, I think I will say this. Ottawa, and I said this earlier, based on the storybook season that they had, if they somehow miraculously overthrew the Pittsburgh Penguins and won the series in 7, part of me wouldn't be surprised just because of how well they've played this year. Karlsson is going to be a key. He's been outstanding. Once again, goaltending is the question mark for Pittsburgh. Vokun is now your starter. Can he maintain his stellar play? Anderson, as I predicted, has been lights out as expected. I wouldn't at all be surprised if Ottawa somehow won the series, but the smart hockey fan in me has to pick Pittsburgh just solely based on their depth. And you could even argue
just solely based on Sidney Crosby, and now that Vokun is starting.
And Crosby hasn't even been at 100% yet. He's still, finding his form, and he's been incredible. Pittsburgh's depth, I think, is what's really going to get them through it. I didn't even think Pittsburgh, up until the end, I didn't even think Pittsburgh played the top of their game against the Islanders.
That's what I was saying about Chicago. You could call it practice mode. Like
Pittsburgh was
drills, trying plays.
Yeah,
like,
Pittsburgh
really
they were kind of in practice mode against the Islanders
up until towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end they had to turn it on.
Early on they were, what is happening?
Yeah, towards the end, because early on it was just like, okay, well, we can't take the Islanders that lightly. They are a good team. They made the playoffs for a reason. But I think Pittsburgh is going to take it in 6 just based on their depth and not based on the fact that they haven't really been playing great hockey yet. And if they so choose to play great hockey against Ottawa, it's over. But I will say the coaching matchup, once again, my favorite coach, Paul the Walrus McLean, can't count him out, man. He's a stellar coach.
God, I hate him.
He's such a great coach. And, Pittsburgh's coach as well, oh my God, it's like I'm escaping.
Dan Bylsma.
Dan Bylsma, wow. Pittsburgh's coach as well. Bylsma's a great coach. And so I think the coaching matchup
quietly great.
Just
like Therrien.
Yeah, just like the coaching matchup was stellar with Montreal and Ottawa, I think the coaching matchup this round will be great. Lots of people are making a huge deal out of Cook versus Karlsson. This is their re-meeting.
I don't know how much Karlsson, like...
I personally don't think
I've never been, had my tendon severed by someone's skate, but, like, looking at the video, like, as much heck as Matt Cook gets, use it as energy, sure, but can you really be mad at him?
No.
That guy goes through so much crap because of the stuff he pulls,
yeah,
and he actually has a legitimate mistake happen to him, and, give the guy a little break,
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, honestly, either team cares particularly much. It's the media that's really focusing on the Cook versus Karlsson matchup.
Well, they gotta blow up anything they can, but, like, you're making mountains out of molehills.
Yeah, exactly. Now you got Boston versus New York. Unlike the New York-Washington series, I think this series is going to be awesome.
This is going to be probably the best. We almost called it wrong last time, but probably the best series of round 2.
I think it'll be between this or Chicago and Detroit as the two best series of the second round.
Yeah, that one could be surprisingly good.
I think you cannot count out an original 6 series.
So you're going to take the Bruins?
I picked the Bruins in 7, and you did the same.
Well, what I'm going to do actually
is you're going to pick
it in round 1.
Right, yeah.
At the very beginning of the season, for those of you who are new to the show, I picked the New York Rangers to win the Stanley Cup. And as the season went on, it was getting a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But both me and EA Sports are going to stick with that pick, and I'll go with the Rangers in 7. EA has called them to win the Cup. I don't know if I'm going to go that far each round, but they upset the Caps, so here we go into round 2.
Yeah, I think New York is as an 8th seed, much like LA last year as the 8th seed, it should be higher than they are. They had a bad season for them. They should have been a lot better than they were standings wise. And going into the playoffs as the 8th seed, they aren't really an 8th seed. Like, skill wise, they're equal to the Caps in my opinion. And
first of all, they were the 6th seed.
Oh yeah. So they got bumped up at the very end.
New York Islanders.
That's true. The Islanders were the 8th seed. They got bumped up at the very end. That's right. But what I'm saying is they were a low seed.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be considered as such because of their talent level.
No.
And you could also argue Nash and Richards haven't really even been playing great yet, and they've still been winning. So, I mean, if Nash and Richards
has put on some sweet moves and is laying guys out, though. He's been very physical.
But if they were to play at top peak form...
Oh, it's over.
I think Boston's going to have a lot to deal with.
And
New York, in my opinion, can really... They can, although it's not their game 100%, New York can match Boston physically. A lot of people forget that. New York's a big team. They got
Girardi, Delzato...
what's his name? Boyle.
And they just picked up, right? Because of
McDonough's a big guy. Like, they got some big bodies back there.
And Lundqvist, he's just incredible.
Once again, it'll be a goaltending battle.
He could steal the series. I don't know if I would say Rask could steal it. I mean, he played some great hockey in the first round. I know you disagree with me on this one.
I think Rask is so good.
But I see way more holes in his game than I do in Lundqvist's game.
Yeah, Lundqvist has been better than Rask. I'll give you that. Okay. Rask has been stellar, but Lundqvist has been better. That could ultimately decide it. So yeah, I'm picking Boston in 7, but it's another pick 'em for me. I really think New York could take it.
Well, you say that when you call it in 7.
Yeah, but I mean, Boston, honestly, I just feel based on the momentum on their side, based on last night's game.
Yeah, the home ice advantage thing will be huge.
I think Boston will take it only because of the momentum they have, the experience that they have of winning the Cup. I think Boston overall is a slightly better team, and I do think they're going to take it in 7.
All right,
and that's going to be a great series.
Yeah.
Chicago, Detroit. I picked Chicago in 6. You picked Chicago in 5.
Yep.
But I can't count out the Red Wings anymore. I was a fool to do it in the first round. I don't think they're fast enough or young enough to contend with the Blackhawks, who really haven't even been trying yet.
That's the thing about Chicago, though, is that they're smart and they know that they will have to try against the Red Wings. And I think we saw a little bit of that in Minnesota when it became a shooting gallery.
Yeah,
we're going to see that against the Wings. They're going to come out. You have to remember, Chicago Blackhawks won this season series 3-1, and they outscored them something like 16-5.
And TSN had a great stat the other night. So far, every season series has been the winner of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. Ottawa,
hasn't been a single season series go the opposite way for them in the playoffs. So, yeah, I agree with you. Chicago should win it. Although that's going to be one hell.
The goals against and goals for in their season series really is why, I'm picking. I would almost say 4. I just can't really put that much.
I still haven't seen Crawford play great yet. Like, he's been good, but I don't think he's been great. He hasn't had to be.
But they're much like the sense that they are like the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have
Emery in the wings.
As well, who also had a great season.
I think Howard can outduel. I think Howard will be a large reason it might go to 6. I think he'll outduel
both
Crawford.
Of those goalies he could beat.
Yeah, but I think Chicago will take it in 6. I think Detroit has enough depth and enough experience that they can steal a couple. It's going to be a very entertaining series. It's going to be, in my opinion, it'll equal Boston, New York.
That'll be the one I definitely have my eye on. The reason,
it's the original 6, man, and this is the last.
When's the last time they played in the playoffs? Do you know?
Chicago, Detroit. They said it was something like 6 years ago. I think. I was hearing.
Not that
this
long.
will be the last time though for them. They will face, unless it's a Stanley Cup matchup, because Detroit goes to the East next year.
Yeah.
So this is the last time. Chicago and Detroit have had a long-standing rivalry. Going back to it for a second, New York and Boston haven't played since the the 80s or something against each other. It's been a long time for them.
Cool.
The picture they showed of that 80s matchup was pretty hilarious to see what it was like back then. But I'm digressing. Detroit versus Chicago has been a long-standing rivalry. They've really hated each other for a long time. They are no stranger in the playoffs. They how many times have they met in the last decade? It's been a lot. They've met a lot in the playoffs in the last decade, just because they've been so good now for the longest time. Original 6 matchup, man. You can't count that out. I think it's going to be very entertaining.
I'm going to look for a lot of scoring from Patrick Kane. I think he's just starting to get his engine really running, and Taves too, and he's an assist machine. So
but Zetterberg and Datsuk, they're gonna have a few things to say about that as well.
Yeah, Chicago's much more physical though, and that's that's the thing about these old guys. They get laid out a couple times.
I just mean in terms of Zetterberg and Datsuk. Don't forget, as well as they score, I'm saying because they're such great two-way players, Datsuk and Zetterberg are two of the best shutdown guys in the league.
Fair enough.
If Datsuk wants to shut down Taves or Kane, he will.
But you could talk about Taves the same way as he's a very likely Selkie candidate in many
It's actually,
years to come.
It's funny because
Shutting each other down.
Taves, in terms of his play style, not in terms of his scoring style, but in terms of how he plays, Taves and Datsuk are very similar.
Yeah.
They're great shutdown guys. So Taves can shut down Zetterberg, and Datsuk can shut down Kane. So it'll be a very interesting matchup. Even if it was to go to 7, part of me, just because it's the Wings, I wouldn't be surprised.
They can pull it off then.
Yeah, it's just because it's the Wings.
If they get it to 7, I would almost change my vote. Because,
oh my god!
Like I said, the Chicago Blackhawks in 5. If Chicago lets it get to 7, they've dug their own grave.
Yeah, if the Wings beat the Blackhawks, that would be incredible.
Yeah, for you, eh? That's like
that would be. Well, just because it'd be such a story, and it would almost be like Ottawa. I would almost say Ottawa beating Pittsburgh would be less surprising because of their season they've had. If the Wings were to somehow beat the Blackhawks, that would be incredible.
Not to say, and that I'm sure you agree with me, is not anything to do with the Wings. It's everything to do with Chicago.
Yeah, well,
and how good they are. It is their series to lose. It is their series. It's their games to lose. Like they should sweep this skill wise.
Yeah.
But Detroit can surprise, as we've seen.
Yeah, I agree with completely. LA versus San Jose now for the final series. Another pick'em for me. I'm going with LA in 7. You're going with LA in 6.
I'm going with LA in 6, strictly because San Jose and their home record. We saw how good they were against Vancouver. That series was over once they got back to the Shark Tank.
Yeah, the Shark Tank is a hard place to play.
So the reason I say that is because LA has the playoff ability. Quick is excellent, and they know they got to take a game in San Jose if they want to win this series. Because the Detroit series, if they go to 7, they're playing with fire.
Do you think people that don't follow hockey and hear the Shark Tank, do you actually think they think that there's like sharks swimming
frozen
in the arena?
Tank? I don't know. Have you seen the artist concepts for how the Frozen game is going to look in Anaheim?
No.
It's like some of them are fish tanks, some of them are swimming pools, where like they're playing underwater hockey.
Yeah.
Like they have like sticks. Yeah. There's an actual sport of underwater hockey.
San Jose's home ice record is so good because they actually do have to swim with sharks.
Do you remember like
there's
NHL,
like sharks swimming in the arena?
Do you remember NHL like EA All Stars '95? There were sharks in the arena and there was like jumps and stuff. Yeah. Oh my god!
I think the Sharks should buy a couple of sharks and have them swimming around.
Might as well.
That would, I think, add a lot to it.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Goalie just like craps his pants.
Yeah. Goalie looks to the right of him. There's a shark just looking at him right there. Yeah, but I say LA in 7 because San Jose's good. I think they can steal a few, especially the home games. I think they'll win them both. LA, I think, will win it because A, they're more physical. San Jose has home ice advantage, don't they?
No.
LA has home ice advantage?
Oh!
No, San Jose has home ice advantage.
You're right. Now, where did they're 4 and... No, what seeds are they?
Okay.
I can't believe we have to look this up.
I can't remember right now.
You're probably right because you seem more confident. I'm just pulling this out of thin air.
Well,
I assumed LA was home ice advantage.
I just pretend that I'm confident. LA does have home ice advantage.
Okay, I was right. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so I think San Jose will take their home games, but because LA has more at home, that's going to be a huge key for them.
Yeah.
LA is more physical. I think the physicality will be the ultimate deciding factor into why they win. I also think their experience as Cup winners last year will allow them to get past San Jose.
Could you imagine first back-to-back Cups in over 20 years? That'd be so cool.
Remember at the beginning of the season, I said LA could repeat
and
as
for
Cup
young
champions.
hockey fans, like that's something, even if you don't like LA, that's something you have to appreciate because it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't. No. Even Detroit, as good as they were, it was like 2 and 4 years, or 2 and 3 years.
The last team to do it was Pittsburgh.
And it was the Lemieux and Yager 1991 and 1992 Pittsburgh Penguins, and just wow, like it's to see that again. Like I barely even remember hockey at that age.
I don't think LA could get past Chicago, but if Detroit was to somehow beat Chicago, I think LA could beat them.
There you go. I mean, it's funny how those matchups work.
Yeah, right? You just never know, right? Like, I think LA will take the series. San Jose, some people say because they beat the Canucks, and everyone who beats the Canucks goes to the finals, and that's a stat. You can look it up. Some people think that San Jose might take the series because this is the last real shot for the Marleau and Thornton era to really win a cup, and they have that hunger in them. So a part of me says, maybe San Jose might take it because of that, because they have that desire to win and what they know is probably their last chance to really do it, because they're getting older. And Niemi, although I think Quick will outduel Niemi, he's a Vezina candidate. He might
got a shot.
He might outduel Quick. Yeah. He might outduel Quick. It's not
like
it's not out
so
of the
unlikely. We're talking about it right now. Like I just think about Jonathan Quick and
But those are the intangibles I think that give San Jose at least some shot.
In order for Niemi to outplay Quick, Quick has to be broken. Like he has to be brought down a level. Because the only thing that could happen if Quick plays the way he is Niemi could play as good.
Well, you got to remember, Couture and Pavelski are playing out of this world right now,
and Couture is a very underrated player.
Very.
And Like,
I think he'll be
him,
I think he'll be in Team Canada.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, are you kidding
A lot
me?
of people don't pick him. I'm like, are you kidding me?
What?
He's such a great
That's
crap.
ridiculous.
He's such a great overall player. Like he's just got such a well-rounded game.
Well, and a lot of people who like to be the GM for Team Canada are all about the offensive power too.
Yeah.
And Logan Couture is not just about goal scoring.
He's
like many players we've mentioned tonight. He'll be a Selke candidate for
years.
Like
Taves.
And a Lucic. Like he plays in a Datsuk. He plays very great check.
Yeah.
Hard, close hockey. Like that's Logan Couture.
Yeah, he's an incredible player. Pavelski also very underrated.
And surprising because he's not as big. I mean, he's getting a lot bigger, obviously, as he's developing his defensive game. But he'll surprise you with a body check.
He will. Pavelski's aggressive, and I think San Jose has the tools where they can beat LA. So the pick'em in me says if San Jose wins, I wouldn't be surprised for those reasons. But ultimately, I give the experience of the LA Kings the main reasoning behind that. I think that's why they'll come out on top. But overall, round 2 is going to be very exciting.
Yeah,
it's going to be some great hockey. We're like super early tonight.
That was all the rounds, eh?
Yeah, that's it.
Holy man, we covered all the notes and everything.
The last 5 shows we've been close to an hour. And
we're gonna have to work on that too, because as the playoffs go on, there's gonna be less and less teams.
Well, there haven't been a lot of storylines. I think that's part of it.
That's true.
Other than the Boston-Toronto game last night, there hasn't been really any amazing moments of the first round. Like, can you think off the top of your head first round moments other than maybe the Eller?
I could say like
other than maybe the Eller hit.
But that's a storyline you'd follow if Montreal had made it, right?
Yeah.
Like that storyline gets finished because of that. Same with Toronto. Like that storyline would have been epic, but Boston still cut them off. Like,
but besides the Toronto collapse, is there any storyline that really wowed you of the first round?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Well, no, I mean
off the top of your head,
LA St. Louis was on the bridge of that, but yeah, no,
it was not as eventful a first round, I guess, as some people thought.
Yeah,
but also
especially to the media drama created last year. I mean, with the Chicago.
But also remember, like you gotta think. The lockout has to have something to do with that. I mean, I don't want to use the lockout as an excuse why some teams overperform other teams, but remember, the condensed travel makes it a lot harder for the West Coast teams to compete because there was way more travel this year than there ever has been. A lot of teams, the Canucks being a perfect example, did not have their players playing overseas. And the teams that did have their players playing overseas, statistically, for the most part, were the better teams this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were lots of lockout-esque things that made it a weird season, which might be why the playoffs aren't as eventful, because the lockout has kind of caused some of that. Would you
I kind of
subscribe
agree
to
with that, except to the point that they're, all these teams have the same experience, and by the time you're 48 games in, like, there's no excuses anyways, even in a full 18
Well, that's
year.
the main excuse, or that's the main reason that would counter that argument, is that, well, everyone's in it together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if one team can use that as an excuse over another team, it's a weak excuse.
Yeah, because you could even argue those players that played in Europe are going to be more tired because they played more games.
Yeah.
Like, by the time you wrap up the season, everything's so rounded off. Like, you got to come out and play hockey and win the cup. That's it. You don't. There's no. Like, that's the thing. Like, it sucks for the team that gets the asterisks in the record books because it's like a 48-game game.
I know. It's
funny. Not a real statistic. It doesn't matter. They beat the other 29 teams who had the same shot they did.
Yeah, it's funny. Some Canucks fans I hear on the radio are like, oh, I'm glad we didn't win this year because it would have been the asterisk year, and I don't want to win a cup in an asterisk year.
Well, and that's the funny thing.
I'm thinking, like, are you kidding me, man? It's the Stanley Cup.
But as a Vancouver fan, I kind of get it because of the rest of the hockey world and how much they hate you guys. Yeah. They would make it count. They would be like, no, it's an asterisk year. It doesn't count. Even if any of the other 29 teams had won it, or maybe Toronto.
Yeah.
But that's it. If those two teams win, it's just like, oh, it's an asterisk. It doesn't count.
Yeah, exactly.
Montreal has an asterisk cup, I'm pretty sure, because of the flu epidemic in like the 40s or something. And Maurice Richard's just like, oh, okay, everyone's disabled. Here we go.
Yeah, that's how old the Habs are. They were playing when the Black Plague was on. It's like, well, this guy has polio, so he's not going to be playing tonight. This guy, he's going to World War II. He won't be playing tonight. Imagine that, eh? Like, you're playing hockey. You're playing. Imagine being a professional.
There was no cup in one of the years in the 40s because of the war.
Yeah, sure. Of course. But imagine being an NHL player in today's age and you get called overseas to, like, fight a war. Like, that's so unreal. Being a hockey fan, I could only imagine being a hockey fan in the 40s, watching your favorite player.
You wouldn't be a fan. You'd be at war.
That's true. Yeah. But I guess, but you know what I mean, though? How bizarre would that be, seeing your favorite player shooting at some guy?
Just up and leave.
Like, oh, I gotta go kill people now.
Yeah.
So I can't play this sport anymore and get paid for it. That would just, oh my god, I can't even. I want to hope that in our lifetime we won't ever have to see that.
Yeah, of course.
You would assume.
Maybe with another planet, which could be kind of fun.
Then you got Space Jam.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we need. A real live NHL Space Jam.
I want to meet Master Chief. Master Chief Hockey.
Everyone has to wear Spartan uniforms.
Yes.
Non-nerds listening to us right now have completely tuned us
I
out.
know, right? But should we just take the next 20 minutes to intertwine video games and hockey?
Well, we should also talk about the Star Trek movie coming out, which is going to be so
Here we
good.
go.
Ha! Flying!
Do we have to
Ha!
worry about copyright and stuff like that now?
We're pumping the movie. What do they care?
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh, we're going to sue you for saying good things about us. Yeah.
Watch them do it.
Yeah. The Bandwagoners have been sued by J.J. Abrams. Yeah, all right, well, that's it for tonight, folks. It was a great first round. We expect an even better second round, some amazing matchups. It's going to be a lot of fun. My name is Andy Cole.
And my name is Justin Boniface. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Have a good night.